Duplicate frame remover does exactly what it says. It removes duplicate frames from footage. And the way it does that is it actually takes a look at the average of the entire frame, and if the following frame is exactly the same, then it removes that frame. It works pretty good when you use it on footage, but this is now in version 2.0. I added a feature called Use Region of Interest for sort of special difficult cases, such as this little animation that was output from Flash. Flash doesn't have very good control over frame rate. So if you step through this animation, you can see right there was 2 frames, there's 2 frames, there's 2 frames, there's 3 frames. So it sort of outputs in a little bit of an erratic way. So if you were to just use the duplicate frame remover as usual, which basically utilizes the entire frame, because most of the frame is black and the region of change is so small. When you run this, by the way, when you run it, it just says that it's going to take a little bit, but there's a little progress bar now that allows you to see the progress. When you run it, you can see here it removed 151. Well, that was the entire clip. It basically assumed that they were all duplicate frames because the region of change was so small, it just ignored it. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Now, with the Use Region of Interest, you can just check this box and then hit Do It. Oh, sorry, then you need to select the layer that you're going to work on, which is this. So the first time you hit Do It, it creates this Region of Interest layer and explains to you what happens here. If you twirl down here in the effects, there's this effect that I just created. So if I go ahead and double click this so I can see the effect up here, it says set the center, width, and height. So which is basically this circle effect here. So I'm just going to move the circle to the region, and I'm just going to kind of go forward here and see that basically make the circle a little bit bigger so that essentially the region inside the circle is where the script is going to detect if there's any changes or not. This looks pretty good like this. So if I go ahead and make sure it's there at the beginning. So now I'm going to go ahead and run it again. So after you set the circle, you need to select the layer again that you need to detect the duplicate frames on. So I'm going to select that again. Again, it's just giving me a notice it's going to take a while. So here it is working. So now, as you can see, it didn't remove all of the frames. But if we see here at the beginning, almost the entire beginning was chopped off. That's because, again, there was so little change. So it really really worked well here after the fact. So how do we actually make it work with both cases? Well, I'm going to go ahead and do this. What you can actually do is you can actually keyframe this this circle. So you can keyframe the region of interest. So over here where it's actually getting big, it's pretty good. So I'm going to go set keyframes for center, width, and height. And then I'm going to go back here where it's sort of more in this area. I'm going to just change the center and make this width and height smaller. So it's now focused on where the action is. So if we come here and we see, as it's moving along, it keyframes out. So it's always going to be looking where the center, where the region of interest is. So if we go ahead and try this again, I have to select the footage clip and leave the region of interest checkbox on. You can also move the threshold, by the way. The threshold set to 0.3 is because if you look at the instructions, it says, I'm going to go ahead and say no for right now. This is in case you have, in the case of footage, this accounts for, say, like compression or noise and grain in the footage. But since this is a perfect output from a computer and there is no grain, we can actually set the threshold to 0 because I wanted to detect any kind of change. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Do It now. Again, it says it's going to take a little bit. Here's the progress bar. So now, as you can see, it only removed 78 duplicate frames. Would you like to delete the regions of interest? Since I'm done with it, I'm going to hit yes. And so now, if we come in here, we can see that it actually worked properly. And now, as we step through here, you can see all the duplicate frames were removed, but the non-duplicate frames were left behind. So by animating this region of interest, you can very specifically tell the script where to look for duplicate frames, and it works now in cases where it used to fail. Again, for normal footage, if you're just doing video, my guess is you probably don't need to use the region of interest unless, for example, it's a locked off camera where only part of the screen is changing. In that case, you can use the region of interest.